57%, if you voted for which question you answered on the very first one, 7 people have. From how many groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So good, all 7. So 57% said we lack clarity. 25% said we have no young adults to work with. 25% we don't know what to do with the ones we have. Nobody said our older members are very reticent to let go of the reins. I thought that was pretty incredible. Or maybe you said it at your tables, but it didn't win the vote. I don't know. Yes, that's right. I did narrow you down. And nobody said we have a lack of funds. You better not after that speech I gave you. We clarified that real quick. Yeah, we better not check that one because Pastor Don go from that. Okay. All right. So, anybody answer yes? Okay. If you have no youth, young adults in your church, is that also true of your community surrounding your church? Could you attract young adults from your community? What changes would your church need to make to have that happen? Yes, there are young adults in the community that are not attending. We are brainstorming for options to attract them to our church. We are planning activities to invite young adults to. Also to involve them in mentoring and discipleship. Building aesthetics and lack of proper internal setup is a major component. I have a lot to say about that one. I won't because I went overtime last time. But aside from that, we also need to focus less on Bible evangelism, more on personal ministries outreach. We need to get creative, make every effort to visit them on an individual basis. Awesome. Good work. Question 3. Where does your church get stuck when it comes to including youth, young adults, and leadership? What roles do you see them being mentored into? They are being mentored into deacons and deaconesses, musicians, audiovisual, pathfinder leaders, ministry leaders such as EYPM, Evangel-Living Youth Prayer Ministry. Oh, that's cool. Lack of trust, superior complex, unreliable, burnout, lack of mentorship, preparation, sharing, lack of training, having surface level vision, lack of openness and transparency, expectations aren't shared, leads to pressure, looking at youth as only resources. Yeah, the youth aren't your only resources. Anybody that has any kind of desire to help youth, young adults can be your resource. Quick story, I had a lady came in, she was 84 years old when I was youth pastor up in the Northwest, and she said, I want to help with the youth. I went, okay. She says, but you need to know something. I don't teach Sabbath school. Oh, okay. I don't cook. I don't drive for anything. I don't do them lock-ins. What's my natural question? I finally got to that after she told me a whole bunch of stuff she wasn't going to do. And she said, I'm going to be the youth room greeter. But here's what you're going to do, Pastor. You're going to take a picture of every kid, because I had 65 kids in this youth group. A picture of every kid. You're going to have their birth date and their name and their contact information. So I went back to my youth team and I said, how are we going to do this? And one kid said, wouldn't it be cool if we painted lines on the wall like they have, at the police station? And we got one of those little signs you could change the numbers on. And their birthday became the number. And their phone number down below and stuff. So we did 2 pictures. We did Polaroids, straight on, sideways. And we had to do double. So we kept one and posted them in the youth room, and she took one set home and she memorized every kid, every kid's name. She came every week, and all she would do is meet kids at the door, and if they had something they wanted to pray for, she would pray with them. And she'd say, hey, your mom had surgery last week. How's she doing? Hey, your dad had that. When she died about 9 years later, there were about 500 kids at her service. So you're never too old, just to throw that out there. Okay. Threw that in for free and wasted more time. All right, everything we've tried hasn't worked, and we don't know what to do differently. Anything that we find we can discuss and introduce found of theirs, even outside the typical church organizational structure. So that's why you feel stuck. Music and praise ministry, total lack of organization. Our last trip to the senior lodge, our elders led the program while the youth sat in the corner. Classic. And there are ways to deal with that. We're not going to deal with those here, but I can give you some suggestions. Fear is usually the motivating factor for resisting change. What fears do you think might be present in your congregation? How can you help them pass their fears? Fear of turning the church secular or irreverent. Our church doesn't seem to be hindered by fear so much as a lack of organization and job delegation. And those are pretty easy. Now, this fear of turning church secular, one of the things I do in churches where I go preach is I'll bring a youth up and one of the elders up. And I'll ask the youth the question, if you could tell this church anything that you think the kids want the church members to know about what they could do to help you in this church, what would it be? And then I ask the elder if there's one fear that you want the kids to know, and then I have a dialogue. Anyway, this one girl said, well, if one thing you could do the most for us is we want relationships. And the elder, when he said, well, the biggest fear is that you'll take the church and turn it into something we don't recognize. Her response to that was, why would we do that? We love the church. We just think there's some changes that need to be made to make it more relevant for us. But we don't want to see the church destroyed either. And that began dialogue between the older and the younger that went a long ways. How does understanding the concept that none of us make it out of here alive change your perspective on the urgency of transferring leadership to younger members? If we don't want it to end with us, we need to invest more of our time and resources into our youth. That's the truth, folks. None of us make it out of here alive. Unless the Lord comes first, all of us are passing off the scene. And if we don't make sure that the church is resting safely in the hands of trained younger leaders, it dies in one generation. That's pretty sobering.
Not only that, we don't want to be doing stuff when we're 80 and 90. I mean, I won't be confined.
Well, I want to be doing something, but not leading Pathfinder camporees, no. What could help you communicate that urgency to your congregation? A graph or spreadsheet representing the age and demographics of our church in comparison. That's a good idea. Comparison to other churches and secular clubs. Yeah, great idea. This is why we do this, folks. Isn't that neat? Understand, of course, if you had more young adults that buy into your mission, you'll have more money. What do you spend your money on now? Is it effectively spent? Are your funded ministries accomplishing what you desire? We need to first evaluate what is needed before purchases. Our ministry funds are very limited. Those we have seem to be focused solely on traditional evangelism tactics. Yeah, and so that you've got to have, though, a clear vision for them to transfer money to. This is why it's important. That clear vision piece is so important. If you don't have a clear vision, they won't transfer money to it. How much money do you think it would take to create a young adult ministry? Where could you get it? Besides a conference. We're not a deep pocket. We do have some funds. But with the right mindset, it only takes members, a Bible, and a purpose. GoFundMe. Yeah, there you go. Yes?
Is there a way that I can go back and see these answers and questions?
All those responses?
We can actually I can capture those and send them out. Yeah. I can't do it right now, but we can do that. Clarity of vision comes from clarifying how you'll become a missional church. It is discovering what breaks your corporate heart and seeking to focus on doing something, anything about it. And their answer was, get off the pew and be Johnny the Bagger. I like it. So you start with yourself. Once you clarify your missional vision, it becomes fairly easy to attract young adults with like-minded vision. Vision births mission, which attracts others who want to buy into that mission. The question, it's not showing up on this thing, but it showed up on yours, was, so when will you start? Who will you start with? Kind of thing. Interlink ministries create smaller communities that feed into one larger community of people who choose to live life for God together. By the way, Raquel Richards is on my young adult leadership. Raise your hand, Raquel. She's on my young adult leadership council here at the conference, and she and Rebecca, and I don't know if Monique's in the middle of that or not. They just drug you in now. Yeah. Yes, I am. Just found out. But they are developing a network of churches in the Atlanta area to network young adults. And it's called, they're calling their thing Interlink, and they got a really cool thing. So during lunch, you'll want to talk to them, and there's your free plug for the day, Raquel. All right. We'll enlist those who are willing to serve and live out this cause. We'll do so by building relations with current adult leaders. And they've got a great thing. They did a whole presentation for our Young Adult Leadership Council. Young Adult Leadership Council voted to send it on to the AdCom. The AdCom liked it and said, let's try it. So the time is now. Anyone willing, the Lord does not call the qualified, He qualifies the called. That's good. Many are called, but few are chosen. And in some of our churches, many are cold, but few are frozen. Anyway. Sorry, filter. I said that out loud. Okay. Many are cold and a few are frozen. But anyway, pray about it. Poll the congregation, ask members of the church to inform committees, give them deadline to report ideas. It's a lot of it still goes back to Johnny the Bagger. Start. Do something. Put your signature on it, and then when people come to talk to you, enlist them. Just like in the supermarket thing, Johnny started putting his thought for the day in. Pretty soon, the ladies back in the flower department said, well, we've got broken flowers. We always throw them out. Well, let's go out and find some young girls or some elderly ladies and let's pin those flowers on them. And it makes their shopping experience a little bit better. Then the guy in the meat department, they said, found he liked Snoopy. So he got a roll of Snoopy stickers, and every piece of meat that he packaged, he put a Snoopy sticker on it. And so Johnny the Bagger began to influence, and pretty soon all the other cashiers developed their signature touch. So you just start with you and let it begin to move. Okay? Now, some good stuff, folks. Let's go to MC4. And between now and lunchtime, which we'll do about 12:35, I want you to try to work your way through some of those. MC4, if you switch events again, one of these days I'm going to learn how to do this all in one event, but I haven't figured that out yet because they were blending. And I didn't want them to blend, so I wanted to keep them all separate. So, what's that? Yeah. I just have to go to Slido and watch all the videos they've got, but it's mind-boggling. All right, so I'm going to activate the poll in MC4. You should see 5 questions. Thinking ruts often leave us bogged down and stuck. What ruts in thinking can you identify happening in your church? Second question, if you could identify the reason that line of thinking exists, even if it has good reasons, what would you say caused it to become a rut? Good stuff can become ruts. 3, what do you think is the reason you remain in the rut? Remember, no one thing got you there, and rarely does one thing keep you there, so identify as many reasons as possible, briefly, obviously. Understanding your ruts and seeing them for what they are, what are ways you can help your church begin thinking differently to establish some new paths? And have you considered the role that fear plays in keeping us stuck? What fears keep your church stuck, and how can you gently move them past those fears? Now, but if you go and look at spiritual gifting, and I kept thinking, hear that music, and it was me not turning it off. My bad. Yeah, it was cool, and I just thought, man, I got my own life soundtrack. It's kind of like, these guys in the movies that walk where they go and the soundtrack starts. And I thought, man, I'm really pumped today. But I told y'all I wasn't right. Anyway, so yeah. Find out where they really want to plug in. And what I've done for years is when I found out where they plug in, what they like to do, you can't unplug them. So the truth will convince them. Now, this is off the screen now. The truth, quote unquote, will convince them someone else will do it, complacency. Likewise, some people do it all. The elders are so used to doing it all that they fail or forget to train and delegate the youth. This is the biggest problem the church has, by the way. They just neglect it, and unless this is done intentionally, it won't happen. And so what happens is you get a whole group of elders that die, and nobody knows how to take their place. And guess who that's on? The elders. God called them to be trainers and disciple-making disciples, and they failed at that duty. They just did the duties of elder, and part of the duties of elder that they missed was being a disciple-making disciple. That is, training someone else to take their place. You can look at, through the Bible, there were a lot of different illustrations, but you think of Paul and Timothy. He spent his time investing in Timothy as he came closer to the end of his life to make sure that Timothy could carry on the work. So it's important to do that. Let's go to the next question because we need to move on. If you can identify the reason that line of thinking exists, even if it has good reasons, what would you say caused it to become a rut? Previous failures due to lack of planning. Lack of planning will kill a lot of things. So we show up and we just do the same thing. Fear of losing our distinctive truths. You know what? The truths never change. Methodologies have to. So if you're afraid of losing distinctive truths because you try a different method, you've gotten the two confused. Bored, apprehensive, self-centered, and the things happening is not attractive or their way to approach ministry. It's just not fun. By the way, let me address this real quick. Fun is an important element. That's why that fifth one we have teach them how to have fun in a Christian setting. But fun is not the only element. They want more depth as well. But it has to be authentic depth. It has to be something that draws them into their relationship with Christ deeper. So fun is an important element, but it's only one element. I like to keep things fun. You've probably noticed that by now. If you haven't, you've been sleeping all through this thing, and I've messed up bad. But again, you can infuse fun into anything you do and make it attractive. And so we've got to do that. Leaders are few and we want others to lead. Communication has been misunderstood, can be more thoughtfully chosen. This takes us back to that vision piece. The better you vision and the more you can articulate that vision well, the more apt you are to begin picking up new leaders. So people will commit to a vision. They won't commit to, hey, will you lead the youth? And so when I was in large churches doing youth ministry, what I discovered was I could say to somebody, would you lead the youth? No. Would you drive your boat for our youth water ski day? Could you make some sandwiches for? Would you be willing to? And so I just broke it down and I gave them a clear vision. They go, oh, well, I can do that. And so again, it's that, what's the overall picture? What are the components that make up the overall picture? And how do I get those components to work for me? Does that make sense? Okay. Fear of backlash, that's real. But fear is based on misunderstanding. And the reason change doesn't happen is because we misunderstand each other and we don't take time to clarify. We just assume. And when we assume that they're against us because they don't think like us, we've just assumed wrongly. When we assume, we've just made an enemy where we could have made a friend if we simply heard them out and we came to an understanding. You could work with a lot more people if you can dispel their fears, take those fears away, then they go, oh, well, that's what you're talking about? Well, sure, I can do that. And I've done that over and over and over. Because it's easier to be comfortable than to be epic. Oh, that is so true. By the way, EPIC is an acronym. You know what that is? I decided a few years ago to make all of my programs EPIC. And it stands for experiential, participatory, image-driven, and connected. Now, you may notice this is an epic event you're at right now. We've been giving you a lot of experiential stuff, right? Around the tables with Slido and so forth. We've also let you participate in ways, especially with Slido and talking to each other. But have you noticed an image that keeps popping up wherever you go? Look on the front of your book. The birds. What are we trying to say with that image? I hadn't thought about that, but that's good. Stay together, he said. Soar. You got to do something. You got to take and flap your wings. So the whole thing, you've seen Mobilize, I think, yeah, they've even got it on here. I wanted that theme here. When you see the Welcome to Mobilize thing that was on the screen, it's got that same theme. What we're doing is we're using that one image to drive this event. Now, you didn't know that. Now you'll notice it every time it comes up. What was the what? Connected. And we're going to be doing that with you this afternoon when we ask you to actually choose somebody that you can text back and forth to encourage each other. We're connecting you. The stuff at the tables is helping connect you. So we're doing an epic event. You just didn't know about it. Glad to help you out there. What do you think is the reason you remain in a rut? Remember, no one thing got you there. Rarely does one thing keep you there, so identify as many reasons as possible. It takes less energy to stay in the rut. Yeah, but you just go deeper. Habit is comfortable. Fear of losing our distinctiveness. It's a people issue, unwillingness to change. I think we too often fit definition of insanity, do the same thing with hopes of different result. Burnout and lack of energy for doing something new. The same routine has been repeated itself. There hasn't been anything different. Nobody's decided to make a change. Too much dependency on the past, lack of vision, control, being comfortable. All of those kill vision, keep you in the rut. Yes. Understanding your ruts and seeing them for what they are. What are ways you can help your church begin thinking differently to establish some new paths? Plan for successful implementation of new ideas. Be enthusiastic about new ideas. Be persistent in promoting new ideas. Let me just highlight persistent. Not antagonistic, but persistent. Clear vision, strategic planning with goals and timelines. Anonymous survey. Sponsor open dialogue between adults and young adults. Use Slido. Hey, good, somebody learned something. It's a great way to do it anonymously, and that's why we do it, by the way. By sharing our vision and asking if better is possible, is good good enough? Taking initiative, feeling the fear, but doing it anyway. Recognize anytime you step out, you're going to enter the tunnel of chaos. Nobody likes to enter the tunnel of chaos, but you always come out better. The problem is most of us start to enter the tunnel, it gets scary and dark, and we get criticized, and so we turn around, we swim back out. We say, I don't like it in there. If you're going to change, you will go through the tunnel of chaos. Just to let you know. Have you considered the role that fear plays in keeping us stuck? What fear keeps your church stuck, and how can you gently move them past those fears? Fear of losing our distinctive beliefs. It's a real fear, but again, you've got to separate theology from methodology. They're not one and the same. Ellen White even says we have to create new means and new ways of spreading the gospel. She's very clear about that. That's right. Pray for the leading of the Holy Spirit and address the fear openly. We're lazy, don't want to be committed to something they don't understand or like, don't have the vision, not able to see how it fits into their future, identify their vision. You see this vision piece keep coming back? That's why it takes somebody like you with vision that can go back and create vision, do your signature thing in your church, put your stamp on it, and begin to spread this vision. You know, that signature thing that Johnny did wasn't the whole vision for the store, was it? It was his one little piece. But he started it, and pretty soon everybody else said, oh, well, if he's doing that and it's getting his result, maybe if I just did this. And people will come to you, what do you think I should do? I don't know. You could maybe do, and if you have a bigger picture in your mind, you can begin to help piece that vision together, one person at a time. By the way, anything is better than doing nothing. Most people are afraid of the unknown. We can show them our vision and why it's important, and maybe understanding will help overcome fear. Live by example. Others may draw courage from you. This whole fear thing, by the way, can be overcome by you leading boldly. You doing your thing in your spot at your time without regard to making sure somebody else is doing something too. You don't have to make everybody in the church do this. You just have to make you do this. And if you do this long enough, consistently enough, and with compassion and love, it will make a difference. It's not on you to change the whole church. It's just on you to change you. And I appreciate the fact that you actually honestly came to this because you recognize this could be a place I could figure out something. I hope you figured out you can change you. If nothing else today, you can go back and be Johnny the Bagger in your church. With that, we're already behind schedule again. But we're having fun, aren't we? Yeah.